What is up? And welcome to the Two Guys One Barbell podcast coming at you. So I'm Ethan, Coach Kelly, that's how you should probably know us. And we're doing this together each week with Adam. Both online coaches, natural bodybuilders. I've competed previously, natural finalist, British national finalist. And Adam, of course, is going to be smashing it this year as well. And Adam's a physio as well. So what are we talking about here?
So, first thing we're going to start with is a bit on progressive overload, something that I think is butchered, to be honest, in terms of social media, particularly TikTok, some of the stuff that you see and some of the stuff you see around the gym as well, in terms of how people are, basically butchering that and not making any real progress because they don't understand what progressive overload means.
Yeah, I've actually recently reset a lot of my lifts because of this. So what I mean by, like, you know this, but for everyone else, like, for what I mean by reset lifts is basically, like, as you progress overload and you're hunting down this progression, which is what you should be doing each time you go in the gym. You check your logbook and you attack those numbers. Like, you want to try and get better every time you go in there. Whether you do or not, it's not make or break. Like, it just means that you're not there yet. There's times where I've fought for a rep for like 5 weeks straight on a hack squat. I remember going in, I felt a fucking butterflies in my stomach every time I was doing it because I was so annoyed. But when you start progress and chase numbers, your form can start to dwindle. And that's something I've seen for myself. So, like, I'll record my sets, I'll record them and I'll watch them back. And I realised I was starting to speed stuff up. Tempos weren't going the way I wanted to. Pauses were starting to get skipped because I wanted that extra load and extra numbers. So I just reset everything recently to get back to a good baseline of actually progressively overloading in the right way. I think that's a massive thing that people do.
Huge, yeah, because I think what often people then try and do is adjust the rep ranges to increase the load. But actually, if you think about it, if you increase the load by 5 kilos, but you do 3 less reps, in theory, you've not progressed at all. All you've done is change what you're doing. And I think a good point you make there is you got stuck on something for 5 weeks and made sure that you made every modification possible to master that. What people do too much is they'll progress over 6 to 8 weeks, hit that point where things start to slow down, which is where we actually start building muscle, and then go, I need a new split. Start changing things too much and swap that exercise for that machine. It's still a pull down. It's totally not the point. Every time you do that, you just get into a point where things are just getting changed completely. So I think that's a really good point to take away. That is, if you do hit a plateau, good. That shows that you are heading towards new territory, strength that you've never been to before, muscle that you've never had before. So run through that. And even if you find that, and it's not going to be on every single set, every single workout, it might be on some of your bigger lifts or sort of up to 3 per session. So just run that for a bit. I found the same thing with the T-bar row. I got to a point where I could increase the load if I yanked it from the bottom and was shifting right off the pad. But all I did was make sure that I recorded every week. And it took a couple of weeks, and then you find that you get that little bit better, or you hold it a little bit longer in the stretch, or you improve your initial sort of 3 or 4 reps, that by the time you get down there, you're improving. So yeah, definitely something to think about with regards to progressive overload.
Yeah, so something you touched on there as well was how... I've actually lost it. What was I going to talk about? Something you touched on was basically when you change in training programs. If you're doing like 8 weeks and you hit the plateau, is there such thing? That's a discussion in itself, I think. But you hit a plateau, then you change, and you say, "Oh yeah, I'm progressing again." You're not. What you're doing is building up that adaptation to a new movement. So you're going to see increases pretty quick. So if you're moving from, I don't know, let's just take a bicep curl to a preacher curl, right? So you're putting a bit more stability and going to a preacher curl. You're still having to get mechanically adapted to that new movement, and your sort of whole progress of being able to do that movement efficiently. So every time you do it, you're going to become more efficient in doing the new movement, which is then going to mean you can move more load. But does that mean more muscle growth? Does that mean more mechanical tension? Not necessarily. It just means you get more efficient at that lift, especially in more technical lifts, stuff like deadlifts, RDLs, squats, bench presses. Like, you can move up a bench press from 60 kilo to 80 kilo to 100 kilo through form, like through technique and form and efficiency, and you may not have grown much muscle tissue. You probably have, but like, this is what I mean by moving to a new movement. Is like, is that the answer, or is the answer sticking with what you've got and progressing that? So like when I the example with the hack squat, 5 weeks to hit that new rep. By the way, it wasn't a new load; it was an extra rep. I knew I was still progressing in leg extensions. I knew I was still progressing in Bulgarian split squats. Those were adding reps. Those were adding weight. And I knew that through those progressions, I'm going to get this extra rep because I'm going to be building the muscle over time. And it just shows how much more is needed to get that. Because I was running the hack squat for maybe 12, 14 weeks. So I was moving it efficiently. My form was down. My tempo was all solid. And I knew I'm either going to break the tempo, shift the movement, do a different hack squat essentially because I'm dropping in quicker, no pause, etc., or I can stick with it and get that fucking rep that I really, really want. And I'll never get it. It was like over the weeks, it was like the first one I didn't even go for it. Second one, I was like, I have to go for it even though I know it's not there. And I'm going to end up at the bottom of the squat. Went for it, didn't get out of the hole. Third week, it moved maybe a quarter up. Fourth week, like a half rep. Fifth week, eventually got it. It was like I won the lottery. But it's just sticking with those movements over time and knowing that, like, have I hit a plateau or have I hit my current top strength level, but I need to build more muscle to actually get more movement here. Muscle building takes time. It doesn't happen like next week. You're not going to be fucking bigger next week. It takes time.
Totally agree. And I think the only other point that really to make on progressive overload in terms of where people go wrong, for me, is about the whole word of overloading, and volume doesn't build the muscle like people think it does. So what you kind of start to see, and I've had a couple of clients message about it actually, if they've hit a plateau for maybe 1, possibly 2 weeks, it's, check-in form will come through, things are struggling with preacher curl, things are struggling with single arm cuff lateral raise, smaller isolation movements where maybe the progressions are going to be a lot slower because they are small, weaker muscle groups that just take more time. Then what starts to creep in is the idea of, I'll throw in a drop set, I'll throw in a rest pause, I'll throw in a superset, I'll do an extra set at the end. And there's all well and good with volume escalations at the right time and right place. If we are pushing through a performance block, that's fine. But I don't think they're always there necessarily, particularly to push things on. So particularly from a physio perspective, if there's a reason your body is hitting a plateau, you're just not quite there yet. You want to push through it where you can. But it's not long before those people with that mindset who just add more and more and more get to a point where things start to very much struggle. And we've lost the light. There we go. Very good. Where people do start to struggle, and I just think it's that thing of, with tendon health, tendons take longer to recover the muscles. We all know that. So sometimes it's just stick it out with that plateau, slow down the eccentric if you have to, find ways to make that progression, of course. But just adding more and more and more and more work in sets, particularly as a natural, just definitely isn't the answer.
I think a lot of this comes with maturity in the gym and that experience that breeds that maturity in the gym, where you don't get bored when you can't get that next rep next week or that extra load. And side lateral raises, for example, right? So, like you said, cuff lateral raise. If you're hitting it there, this is for everything, but we'll just use that as an example. If you're taking it to where, and this is something really important, is knowing if you're actually trained hard enough to see progressive overload. So progressive overload doesn't build muscle. Building muscle creates the progressive overload, if that makes sense. So like, you've took it there to where you've caused that mechanical tension, you've triggered that muscle growth stimulus, you've recovered, and then next week, maybe you're strong enough to move a bit more weight. Moving the more weight isn't the thing that's growing muscle. Growing the muscles meaning you move more weight, essentially. So if you're stuck on that, say, you get 11 reps, you get 11 reps, you get 11 reps. But every time you do it, you're taking it to where those last couple of reps are sort of very slow, really fucking hard to do. You're creating that muscle growth stimulus, and it will pass. It will get to the point where you can do that 12th rep. You just need to stick with it and keep on pushing. Yeah, of course, there is, like you mentioned, you've got your drop sets, you've got your myo reps, you've got your rest, like the rest pause, you've got your supersets. Like, to be honest with you, like, they're not for me. Superset, by the way, supersets, if you're supersetting the same muscle, let's just put this in, like, fucking, let's stop this. So if you can superset, so if you're doing like bicep curls with the bar, right, and then you go straight to a superset and start doing them with the cables, just continue doing it with the bar, mate. Like, what are you doing? Why are you putting that weight down? Because if you can then go to the cables, you haven't took that first set to where it needed to go in the first place. So if I take a set of bicep curls, easy bar curls, and I take it to where it needs to go, you go, all right, go and pick that cable curl up now. You know, I'll not be able to get a rep. I could myo rep it with that barbell curl, but why not just stay on the barbell curl? Easy to track. You put it down, give yourself a shake out, 15 seconds, jump it back up, get another 2-3 reps. Really easy to track. Or you can start saying, well, I've done this amount of weight on the barbell, and then I've had to move to the cable. The cable I was using it, like, just stick on the barbell. I don't get this. I see it a lot, and I really don't get it. One thing I seen a coach put on social media was why he asks his clients to do this is because he's not finding their training to the level of intensity they should be. So by putting in a superset in the same muscle group, then it's making them push that bit harder. My response to that is maybe actually teach your fucking clients how to train hard.
Yeah, that's exactly where it comes down to. I think supersets in terms of for kind of novice to intermediate lifters for different muscle groups, I can see a place where maybe that there is something for that, particularly from a metabolic perspective, of if you have clients who maybe haven't learned quite yet failure, or they think they have, but they just lack that gym maturity and they're just not quite there yet. It can be a good way to push it in and show them what that feeling should feel like. So if you, for example, have some, but you can always do that with just higher rep range sets. They're just there. A lot of it's novelty. I think novelty with things like that is there so people, one, if they're limited for time, they feel like they can power through, but then you question the quality of the movements. And maybe it teaches them a little bit about what muscle fatigue and muscle burn should feel like. But then again, you don't build muscle by doing, legs, bums and tums or barbell classes that you do at your local leisure centre. They're just... That's what, yeah. I think it's typical when we see the Macklemore videos with like middle-aged women banging on the drums and that, and not a single one of them's in shape. I wonder why, because ultimately they have no knowledge behind what they're doing, and they're moving a bit and getting a sweat on, so they're burning some calories. But then they go to Starbucks afterwards and double what they've burnt. That's hard. Yeah, don't get me started on that. Would be
loading the Starbucks order, mate. Fucking frappuccino to a caramel frappuccino.
That's what I mean. Yeah, and people wonder why they're obese, but it's what it is.
Yeah, supersets. Obviously, going back because I think I've sort of helped tear that off topic. You started talking about legs, bums, and tums, and I was like, oh, I'll go. But, going back to supersets, I think so. If you are short on time, see, and this comes down to like if you are actually short on time, by the way, not just like you don't want to be in there long. Like, if you want really good results anyway. So if you like see a 40-minute session, that's all you can do because you've got kids, you've got the wife, you've got the job, you've got the dog, you've got loads of shit going on. But you can get 40 minutes in the gym, supersets, right? Sweet. But we ain't going to superset the same muscle because, again, what's the point? If you're doing arms and you're supersetting bicep curls, getting it straight at the top, doing tricep push downs, sweet, you're hitting two birds with one stone there. It was in my plan with my coach, and I actually told him I'm not going to like superset. I'll do them separate. I fucking hate supersetting. I know I'm not going to get the same amount out of my second set as I had my first set. If I'm doing bicep curls, and the way you train, the way we train to take it there, if you're doing bicep curls, and then I'm finished that, and I put it up at the top to go into tricep push downs. That tricep push down not going to be where I want it. Like, yeah, the triceps haven't worked, but my heart rate is flying. My oxygen is down. The amount of oxygen I've got to work with is not there for a really productive set. Like if I've got a low heart rate, I'm ready, I'm zoned in for that set. I feel it's rushed, and it's just like I'm doing the tricep push downs, and I'm like, seeing it, this is not hitting right. I know I'm already on the first rep. Like I don't want to be like that. I want to give those triceps the actual volume and the precision that I want it to, like the priority I want to. You know what I mean? Yeah, like chest and back, big muscle groups like that. You know what family is saying that.
You imagine going from an incline barbell press to a T-bar row. And if I said to you, do that and then do it separately and run that for 12 weeks and see who looks better, it's going to be night and day difference. Again, don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place to superset bits and pieces, maybe smaller muscle groups. If you've got 40 minutes and you've done 3 exercises that are your big, heavier compound stuff, and then you do some side delts and some bicep curls, some rear delt flies, and a tricep push down. If you've got 40 minutes, that's probably a decent way to structure it if you're going to do it. But the last thing I'm going to start seeing is people supersetting pendlay rows with military press. You're not going to get very far with that, because by the time you've done a set to true failure with a pendlay row, you're telling me if you could military press the same as what you would do as if you had 2 minutes rest in between, you're lying. That's just not the case. It just doesn't work like that.
If you're taking to like a big movement like that, so again, you see people supersetting like chest and back. By the way, if you are supersetting chest and back, you should be supersetting the big movement with more of an isolation, smaller movement. That's not bench press and fucking pendlay row. Like that's insane. But if you're supersetting like pendlay row with maybe chest flies, you get away with it a bit more. It's not as a demanding movement, like the supports area in the machine and all the rest of it. But your example there, pendlay row into military press. If I took pendlay row where I want to take it, the last thing I want to do is look at any weight. I just want to be sitting down or recovering. Like I'm going to be tanked. Like if someone, there's dumbbells, start pressing them.
No, exactly. And that leads us quite nicely, really, into optimal training and kind of principles of what we think optimal training really should be. Optimal, because I think it's certainly one of those where you see people saying about, these are the best 3 bicep exercises if you want big arms, and it's all a load of shite, to be honest. It goes through generations. You've got like Arnie generation, Dorian generation, Cutler generation, and then we'll come back to science-based lifters. But as you kind of transfer your way through that sort of, all of them had fucking massive arms, and none of them did the same thing. So optimal training is, first of all, what is your definition of intensity? Because if your intensity isn't there with anything you do, you're not going to get very far. And if you don't follow that up with true intent, i.e., you've not got any distractions, your phone's on do not disturb, you're focusing on what you're doing, and you've got clear structure and something that you're working towards, that is the only way to really optimal train. That's the key principles, intensity with intent. As long as you do that, first of all, that's like the foundations. That's the most important bit. And then we can start talking about how we load the prime equipment for optimal stuff. It does make a difference, of course it does, because that's the tiniest little bit right at the sort of the peak of the mountain. The bottom bit is...
That's it. How much is it? If I take prime, if I load the middle peg in the prime, and I take 3 sets to failure, how much difference in muscle growth am I going to get if the second set is slightly more distributed to the stretch and the third set is even more distributed to the stretch? How much more? I'm taking it to failure. That's the thing. Is it going to be noticeable? And maybe, as you said, the top sense, the tip of the iceberg job. If you're training to go to the Olympia, or like international bodybuilding level, natural or enhanced, you want those 0.1% you want. But if you're someone who's wanting to get in shape because you're going to a pool party in Ibiza and you want to get your shirt off and all the glasses look better, or if you're last and you want to have a big bum in your jeans or whatever it is, like Dorian weren't training with prime equipment. Size of him. Arnie weren't distributing the size of him. You know what I mean? Like, how much does it matter? Like, yeah, we obviously going to take the little percentage we can in this day and age, but like, I think too many people, especially in the science-based, optimal-based stuff, they're majoring in the minors so heavily that they're acting like it's the be-all and end-all. And it's like,
totally.
Not. Like, it's not.
No, absolutely not. And it goes back to that bit of progressive overload. If you've nailed those foundations, that's as optimal as it gets. That is as optimal as it gets. Of course, there's going to be certain biomechanical difference based on the individual. If you're somebody who's really, really tall, you might find that using certain machine-based squat patterns just work better for you than a back squat because you're all limbs and you're a bit gangly and it just doesn't look and feel good. It puts stress on the lower back if you go over a certain weight. That's not about necessarily the machine being better than that. That's just using your common sense to make
Yeah,
it.
it's got really long fingers, and like, it's not gonna be optimal. And a leg press might work better. Yeah, might feel more comfortable in it. Might feel like get more out of it. But again, I think, to be honest with you, talking about leg press, I think a lot of people trash leg press, and it's not the leg press machine's fault. It's the people doing the leg press. Like, I just done leg press today. I'm fried. But it's about making sure that you're doing it with intent. I mean, what you said there, intent and intensity. That's what you want. Precision, intensity, and progressively overloading that. So like, it's all. And by the way, I love Tom Platz. He said like leg press, it looks fancy, but it doesn't give results. Yes, it does. 100% does give results. I mean, no matter question Tom Platz, one of the best legs of all time. But let's be honest, it was a mix of extreme amount of intensity in the gym and the extreme genetics that he had for growing legs. It was a mix of that. Leg press, brilliant movement. So if you're somebody who doesn't like squatting, don't be scared to jump on that. Just don't be one of these idiots who load it up with an amazing amount of weight. Oh my god, look, he's going to leg press that and come down 2 inches. That's not intent. That's just ego. So again, with these patterns, with optimal stuff, we want to be talking about what's going to work for the long term. What will you concentrate every time you get in there? And that's stuff like your range of motion, your tempo, your intensity, how accurate are you with it, how much you're putting into these. And even going far too, I would say your mindset before getting into the set is more important, whether this is the most optimal movement for this muscle. Because you can jump in. I see it, people on the phone toss down to the set. You're not ready for that set. You're not ready for that. You're dropping a couple of reps, 100%. And I've been there where I've jumped into a set, and as soon as I've hit the first couple of reps, I thought, I've not been ready for this. And I've jumped in there, ready, and then moving. Oh, yeah, this is cool. Like, that's another thing with this intensity, is getting ready for that intensity as well. And it's not just the last 3 reps, the last 2 reps. That's not where your intensity should be. It should be from rep 1. You should be making that weight feel light from rep 1. And I see people like Tiffy West, for example, with his deadlift, amazing deadlift, one of the strongest deadlifters, the strongest deadlift I've seen do it in like actual real life. You get to witness it like pretty much fucking weekly. But he'll tear this off in his warm-ups on the run up to 360 kilo. On the warm-ups on the run up that, he'll tear it off the floor like he's moving 360 kilo. He's not doing that just to go through the motions. He's getting that intensity dialed up to the point where he knows when he moves that weight, it's his. It's not like, oh, I'll turn it on when I need to.
For using Kiff as an example, right? If you watch Kiff on a deadlift, there ain't anybody who's coming anywhere near. But if you watch Kiff on a leg press, his leg press isn't that impressive in the grand scheme of things, in terms of the numbers. If you were to just look at the machine and what was on it, so if he was nowhere near it and you've seen what he would have in a leg press, you wouldn't necessarily be blown away with that in comparison to what you are by his deadlift. Kiff has built a phenomenal posterior chain by being an excellent deadlifter, and he gets the most out of a leg press. But he doesn't have to use the same level of weight. Like, in terms of how he is with the deadlift, his squat pattern isn't as impressive. Still very good. He's a very high advanced lifter. But he uses everything to the absolute precision of what he's really, really good at. He's a strong presser, but not compared to what his rows and his pulling from the floor is. So he utilises it to his advantage. We all have those sorts of things where you are better than others. I like to give myself a go against the vast majority of people with pressing. My pressing's really, really strong. But if you compare specific stuff compared to my rowing movements compared to other people, it's all right. It's not bad. It needs work. It's decent. But you get good at other things based on your genetics. It's just how good you then apply it. I know that I don't need as much focus on pressing movements to build chest and delts. I need to be a bit more specific with upper chest work, like we all do. But then when it comes to back, I've been hitting back 3 times a week for 12 months, trying to bring it up to get it to the point of where I am from the front. So it's just one of those there where you look at optimal training, and that's the other side of it is It needs to be optimal for you. Like a lot of my female clients, particularly if they come to me as like some splits they're doing in, they'll be following push pull legs or some kind of modified female version of a bro split. And you question why are you doing chest focus push? Yeah, they don't know. If I said to you, you train everything, I train everything twice per week. When you break it down in terms of reps and sets and volume, it's not necessarily there in terms of where you want it to be. So as soon as you transfer that to delts back and then split legs up, hamstrings, glutes, and quads, all of a sudden you've got a completely different outlook. And the optimization of what that looks like is going to be huge because they're putting the same amount of input in, just put it in the right places. I've never seen a girl come to you and say, "Oh my god, look how good my incline bench press is." Said no female ever. Do you know what I mean? Unless you've got a few clients who are, yeah, don't be swayed by us. But certainly, you've never seen that on a female's story where they've gone like super proud of my incline bench press today. What the vast majority of them want is glutes that are going to pop when they're on the beach, or that sort of stuff. They'll tell you how good the hip thrust is, how good the leg press is, how good the RDLs are. But if I said to any of my female clients, "What's your incline dumbbell press?" I bet Bass off. She might be the only one who has any idea. I don't think anyone else will know exactly what those numbers are. Hourglass. Yeah, no, totally, mate. And other thing I kind of wanted to cover a little bit tonight was about six packs. And I think there's a lot of myths with this in terms of how do we get a six pack? How do we maintain it? Should it be something that's there just maybe in the short term when I'm at my leanest and then disappear when I start bulking? How do we kind of approach ab training? So I think one big thing I kind of look at is one aggressiveness, or how quickly out the box people go from right. I've had my holiday, brilliant. Now I'm back in a bulk, and they ramp the calories up so high that they get to a point where they've kind of more or less just undone what they've done so far, knowing that when it gets back to January, February, and they're going away in June, July, that they've just got that 2, 3 stone just to shift again. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because of course we don't want people completely shredded all the time. It's in terms of general health markers and things like that. We don't want people peeled, but it's very, very unlikely that you're going to be there for that long. So if we reverse diet effectively and literally brick by brick build the tissue, we should be able to keep some degree of what that six pack looks like all the way through. Yeah.